this audio any better? Well, that's way better. This video is for anyone separating from the military, whether you're separating after 4 or 6 years, or maybe you did 20 or 30 years and you're retiring, whether it's, you know, you haven't even been to BMT and you're just trying to be super forward thinking, or maybe you have a year left and you're like, oh shit, how do I set myself up for success? It doesn't matter why you're separating from the military. If you're separating, this video is for you. It's all the questions that I, in hindsight, should have been asking myself, and I just didn't know. Just because I didn't retire doesn't mean that I didn't check in with retirees. I have tons of friends who are out the veteran community, so I asked around, what should you be thinking as you're getting out? This video is meant to help whoever I can come up with better questions, or just create a better situation for yourself than I did myself when I got out of the military. See, I knew that I didn't want to be in the Air Force, but my options were endless. That gave me so many different things that I could do that I didn't really settle on one and push forward relentlessly. In hindsight, that's what I should have done. If I would have started my YouTube channel years ago like Kyle Gott did, well, I'd be set up so well right now, but I didn't. I didn't understand forward thinking in terms of getting out. You're going through a huge life transition, and having done that and wanting to destigmatize getting out, in hindsight, these are the questions that I should have been asking myself, so I'm giving them to you free of charge. You're welcome. The uphill battle. The uphill battle is not getting out. Getting out was actually the easiest part. It felt like, for 6 months you had to go in and sign a piece of paperwork a day, and each piece of paperwork led you one step closer to the edge of some long diving board, and at the end you just kind of got pushed off. But it's not nearly as daunting as, those first few weeks as you wake up out of the military and then you're like, wait, what now? What's my purpose? They send you to TAPS, they try and set you up for as much success as possible, but really, I went through TAPS and I was like, this is bullshit, because I didn't want to work for the man. I went, it was like a vacation from work for like a week. Thanks. I knew I was gonna be a photographer, a videographer, a graphic designer. I might go to school, I might not, but TAPS could have been helping me figure out how to be an entrepreneur, how to network better, how to get business in my local area, wherever that might be. I feel like those skills are pretty much transferable, but I kind of had to figure them out for myself. If I would have been thinking well before TAPS about what should I be doing or thinking about before I get out of the military, well, I could have made my transition so much better. It's funny to me that veterans want the civilian sector to treat veterans like they did something successful, yet we don't even have any sort of celebration whenever someone completes their enlistment or served in any way. Unless you retired, you're not celebrated at all. Then we want the civilian people to be like, hey, good job, but we don't even do that for ourselves. Before I even went to BMT, I should have been asking myself, what do I want to do when I get out? I kind of was, but getting out meant a lot of things, but mostly it meant growing up. And growing up means asking yourself questions that nobody really asks each other. I'm not saying I had a terrible transition. I got a $17,000 separation check, but I definitely could have made that last a lot longer, or even just set myself up for success with the right investment. And I just didn't know what I was doing. I didn't think fiscally. I thought, I don't even know what I was thinking. Honestly, I don't even know what I was thinking. What was I thinking when I got out of the military? I was thinking, fuck this place. Had I been asking myself the right questions early on, and I could have definitely had a much more successful start to my civilian career. I'm not complaining. I've loved my life since I got out, but that's definitely not to say I haven't made mistakes. I made some mistakes along the way for sure. When I joined the Air Force in 2006, I had planned on doing 4 years, getting my GI Bill, going to school when I got out, and just not having a huge debt to, you know, start off adulthood. I ended up doing 7.5 because I just didn't have a plan to get out. I had a master sergeant that I worked for in my first enlistment, and he asked me, what are you gonna do? Are you gonna get out or are you gonna stay in? And I said, I'm gonna get out. And he said, what's your plan? And I said, I don't have one. He said, a no plan is a plan to stay in. And that was absolutely true. A no plan is a plan to stay in. The security that the military provided was too much for most people, and that if you didn't have a plan for security, then I mean, your best bet was probably to stay in. At 3 years, the Air Force was like, hey, are you staying in? You getting out? And I said, I guess I'm staying in because I don't know what I'm gonna do if I get out. A no plan is a plan to stay in. I gotta put this thing down for a second. The thing is, it's kind of like anytime you wanna do anything great, you have to plan. And planning, it's not so much for the small things in life. Yeah, you have to plan those, but those are gonna come your way no matter what. It's the things that they're really the big picture thinking. It's like, well, what do I want my life to be like in 5 or 10 years? And how do I curate that? It's not until I was in college and asking myself the questions that I'm trying to give to you now that I realized that this is a problem. And it's not just me. It wasn't just at that time, it's a lot of people throughout history. Nick Koumalatzos talks a lot about transition and how transition is the same no matter separating from the military or quitting a big job, whatever that life transition is. I made a video and I was walking around and my mic wasn't working, and I said a lot of great things, but they weren't poignant, and I wanted to make another video with this one to supplement that one to help, and I feel like I'm awash again. I'm kind of giving you thoughts but not substance, and I want you to have a clear cut 1, 2, 3, these 3 questions will lead me to success. But I don't know if that's actually possible because those questions are going to be different for everyone. For me, it was realizing that to be an amazing, memorable photographer, I had to create books or something of substance that transcended my life. And to do that, you have to think of something original and then capture it in a way that moves people. But that's just for my job. What your job might be and what greatness means in your job could be entirely different altogether. It's really just asking what you want for your future and how do you curate it. But TAPS isn't gonna ask you that. TAPS is just gonna tell you that this is how you get your VA coverage, or this is how you cross a T and dot an I. But no one really gives a shit about the things that they're gonna teach you in TAPS. So this was to try and get you to understand that they're gonna ask you the questions that are on the lowest level of thinking. They're gonna ask you where you wanna live and how you're gonna make money and all the things that are gonna continue your life in the cycle of whether you're building something with wood or making something on video. You have to put forethought into creating anything, and that's most important in your life. If you're not putting forethought into your life, then, well, what kind of life are you creating? You're just kind of going with the flow? That's probably not the best idea, right? I mean, if you put the forethought into knowing exactly what outcome you want to have, probably going to be the best version of your life, right? That's what you would ideally think of for yourself and then work towards. And they say, you know, if you have the intention, then you can create it. And I believe that. I mean, Elon Musk is trying to go to fucking Mars. That's amazing. But maybe you don't care to go to Mars. Maybe you want to be the next Chef Boyardee. Maybe you want to be the best auto mechanic in your town, the best barber. If you decide what way you're going to make income before you get to a place where you need that income, well, it's going to be the most beneficial. So if you start, you know, now and you're going to BMT tomorrow and you watch this and you're like, okay, after BMT, I'm going to go to tech school, and in tech school, I'm going to eat at the chow hall, and after that, I'm going to save all of my money because I'm just going to walk everywhere, and then I'm going to get to my first base and I'm not even going to buy a car because I know I'm going to live close enough to work that I can just go to work, go home, eat at the chow hall, save money, and you can Kyle got the shit out of it. Well, fucking phenomenal. Ask yourself, what do you want in 5 years? What do you want the year that you retire. Maybe you were in my class of BMT and you have 7 years left until you can retire. You got to think about it before you can do it. You can absolutely do the same thing that you did when you walked into that recruiter's office and you were like, you know what, boom, I wanna join. And they were like, okay, sign right here, boom, gotcha. No boom gotchas. That doesn't happen anymore. Their boom gotcha is like, ha, you're falling on your face? Oh well, you should have planned better. Well, yes, I definitely should have, and I take the responsibility for not asking myself the right questions early enough, but that's what this is for. I just want you to ask these questions, that's all. For me, success was putting on my sweats, going upstairs, and getting to work. I didn't want to have to go into work. I didn't want to have to drive to commute to some job that I didn't care about, and where I was just making someone else way more money than I was making myself. That didn't sound fun or successful to me. So I figured I'd go into business for myself, but how do I get there? How do I network with local individuals to actually create a business where I can sustain life? And it's really always going to be about building a network, but you have to know what success looks like to know the kind of life that you're trying to move toward. Being a veteran, I definitely leaned on the American Legion at one time just for building a community, but I didn't really find that to be my spot. So I'm really just looking to YouTube to try and build that. Make a roadmap. Maybe it's not the same for you. Maybe your way is different than anyone else's way. I've always been the one to like, no, I'm gonna fail my way and then I'll figure it out. It's kind of like being a big brother. My little brother always learned from my mistakes, so I guess I'm just trying to help YouTube learn from my mistakes. Ugh. Just like anything else, there's more serious questions and there's less serious questions. The big picture questions are, what does success look like to you? No matter how much money you could possibly have, what does that lifestyle look like to you? I mean, everybody says they want to be debt-free, but once you're debt-free, that just means that you're gonna buy everything cash. But that doesn't determine your job, any sort of amount of income, your lifestyle, nothing. It just says you don't want to owe people money. And then what? Career's important, but what are your priorities? Money, relationships, lifestyle, travel, learning, notoriety, security, legacy. Maybe your only priorities are what you don't want. You don't want to live in the cold. You don't want to live in the desert. You don't want to be away from your family. And if those are the things that are important, it's easy. You just got to answer those questions well before it's time that you provide for your family. Because if you're worried about providing, you're not going to be able to ask yourself these big picture questions. But if you know that you have security of the military and they're going to pay you every 2 weeks for the next 6 months, 2 years, 10 years, 20 years, then well, you can start setting yourself up for success now. What are you good at? What temperature do you even want to live at? And how do you get there? What are your life priorities? How do you want to be perceived? And are you that way now, or do you need to make some personal changes? You know, we're pretty much the character on Street Fighter. Like, you are that character. You just get to pick all the attributes, and the military's already built so many attributes in that you know how to perform. You know how to be uncomfortable and continue working regardless. You know how to put in the extra effort. So why not capitalize on all the training that we've had and make something greater? One of the most important questions when I talk to a veteran is, you know that you're starting from the bottom, right? As a 4-star general, you could probably go to another company and run that company, and companies understand that at that level. That's high level thinking. Nobody knows how an E5 ran things, or how an E6 has to deal with military mentality, or how an E7 is responsible for so many people. Nobody really knows any of these things or how the military runs. So it's up to us to start at the bottom, work our way up. We have the ability and the skills to work our way up much faster than our civilian counterparts. we just have to put our minds to it. One of the best things that you could possibly do, especially if you're retiring, is hire a financial advisor. Maybe it's just for a short time and they can say, okay, this is how much money you're gonna make a year, this is how you can invest it, these are the questions that you wanna ask yourself on a regular basis, these are the questions that you wanna ask yourself because maybe you're like me and you're getting some sort of separation check. But you should definitely talk to someone that helps you ask those big picture financial questions. I can't say that I know them because I haven't gone to school for that. If you have questions, there's definitely financial advisors that you can ask. Do you have the network to get a foot in the door right now before you even separate? When I was using my GI Bill and going to school, I had access to all sorts of internships with businesses far and wide. I was in Boston at the time. I could have worked with Reebok, I could have worked with Converse. There were so many different you name it, it's in Boston. And I could have probably found an internship and used my student access to get my foot in the door in these companies that I otherwise wouldn't really be able to. I saw that I had access in this weird format that only really takes place if you are a student. They don't even care if you're old or young. If you say that you're a student, you can get an internship. And I was like, dang, I wish I would have known that when I was in the military. I'm sure there's access to things that only military members could do, and I just didn't know. That's what I'm talking about. Try and use what you have now to leverage what you want for the future. What are you good at? What skills do you have that you can use to make money? Whether that's a hobby that you upgrade to a profession, I don't know, do you even want to use the skills that you have to make money? I had a welding background before I joined. I didn't want to be out in the elements every day, uncomfortable all the time. Maybe that's not important to you. Maybe you want to be a lineman on top of a power pole, saving everyone from being out of power. That's an admirable job, but it doesn't mean that you have to go to college. The more education, the more options across the board, everywhere you go. If you can use your off-duty time to get a certification that would help you when you get out so that you can just smoothly transition right into the job that you've been wanting, do that. Do that 7 years prior, do that 2 years prior, do that prior to separating if you can, and you're gonna be set up so that you have a job. When I was in TAPS, only 1 in probably 8 or 10 had a job that they were gonna go into directly after leaving the military. Put as much forethought into your future as possible while you have the security of knowing that you're getting paid every 2 weeks for the next however long you're in. It's really that simple. Military.com had an article from Evan Hafer from Black Rifle Coffee, and he said a few things that I really liked. Feed yourself a big bowl of humanity. It doesn't matter how much leadership training or how many different schools you went to. It doesn't matter how many times you jumped out of an aircraft, how many bad guys The military is a micro society inside a larger society. Where else can you experience socialism in America? One of the most important things that I was told that you just have to do is make sure that your medical records are as up to date as possible. If there was ever a time that you twisted a knee, broke an ankle, got a concussion, make sure that your medical records are as complete as possible. Understand your military training is a gift, because it really is. It's something that most people just don't have. Be your own first sergeant. Make sure that you're staying within your own regulation. Make sure that you're not embarrassing yourself. You don't have a supervisor to make sure that you're doing the right thing, so make sure that you're doing the right thing. Write yourself a mission statement. Know where your priorities are and where they're not. Know the things that you don't give a shit about and that can just change on a whim, and know those things that are absolute no's. Being a civilian is not about being comfortable. So make sure that if you want something out of life, that you're uncomfortable, that you're working for it day in and day out. My name's Scott, you're watching Regular Veteran. I'll see you on the internet. Thanks for watching.
What should I avoid